prophet. Charlie Black, AR the prophet.
AR the prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. Hold up, I don't think they heard me. I said, AR the prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. Hey yo, turn me up a little. We good. AR the prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. This takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush straight. This one's for the record, but going down history in the making. AR the prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush straight. This was for the record, but going down history in the making. First it was Elijah Muhammad, now we the honorable black prophet. We been in our bag and out of our feelings, securing all the profit. And going outside, don't know what you hearing, so miss me with that gossip. Saying sucker free from up shit, let someone get out of pocket. Whoa, we come from different walks of life, but relate to the same cause. Silent live a fight, laid up behind them hospital walls. They focus like the base, but like syringes sharp as steel.
Welcome back, you guys. Happy holidays. It's Mia with Sickle Cell Awareness 365. And today we are going to be talking about part 2 of relationships with sickle cell disease. And we have Mr. Roy and Mrs. Madrese LaBeach with us today. That's going to help us out a little bit, kind of understand some things about the dynamics of a marriage with sickle cell. Sickle cell kind of adds another layer to life in general. So I'm excited to have this conversation with them. Roy and Madrese, how are you today?
We're doing good. How are you?
I am great. So let me start off by saying, Roy, let's start with you. So you have sickle cell, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And what type do you have?
SS.
SS. So how was your life growing up as a kid with sickle cell?
It was pretty rough. I definitely had a lot of crises. Growing up, in and out of the hospital, surgeries and such. So me and my mom had it pretty rough, being in and out of hospitals.
Right. Okay. How did that affect you mentally, as far as sometimes I think sickle cell affects men and women differently, especially when it comes to the mental. So how do you think that played a role in maybe your self-esteem and just kind of getting to know yourself, going through puberty and becoming a man?
Definitely, I would say it definitely played a role as far as self-esteem goes. Played a big role there because I was always self-conscious of whether my eyes were yellow or even showing symptoms of pain, letting it be shown on my face or anything like that, because I didn't want other kids to see me getting special treatment and then I have to explain why, or, kids just don't understand in general. So that was always something that I was always really conscious about. And then going into puberty and adulthood, it was hard there too, because we don't go through, a lot of us, should I say, don't go through puberty the same way.
Right.
So for me, it was a late onset. I was like probably 20 before I even started growing facial hair. So, so going through high school and seeing all my other friends, like getting taller and basically becoming men, and I'm still sitting here in the same body was wild. But it eventually happened for me. But it was definitely hard to go through, and people not understanding.
Right. I can definitely imagine that. So how did you and Madrese meet?
We met in college.
Met in college. Okay.
We weren't really close in college, but we did meet in college. Um, it was a few years later, maybe about 3 or 4 years after. Well, we met. I would say I was 18. She's a year older than me.
Yeah, it was like 2009.
Okay.
2009, 2010 when we
Yeah.
first met, and we started dating at the end of 2013.
Yeah.
So it was some years.
Yeah.
Okay. Madrese, had you dated anyone else with sickle cell?
Nope.
Roy, have you dated someone else with sickle cell before? No.
No,
Okay.
never dated anyone with
So
sickle cell.
Roy was kind of your introduction to the sickle cell life, right?
Mm-hmm. No, like he was the first person that I've met that had sickle cell. Before then, I only knew about it from like the scientific aspect, not knowing someone personally dealing with it.
Right. Roy, were you forward in the beginning of you guys' friendship with your sickle cell? How did you approach that conversation?
I already knew our campus was small and loud and messy. So
Yeah.
I already knew before then.
Yeah, I got sick once in college, and I had to go to the hospital. And it seemed like the moment I stepped foot back on campus, people were like, "Are you okay? I heard you were in the hospital." And oh, my cousin has it, or my sister has it, or whatever. So I mean, everybody was really supportive about it. You know, there was never any drama that they came to me with anyway. So that was a good thing, but it wasn't something that I had to like sit down and have a conversation with because everybody seemed to already know.
Yeah, and I think that probably made it a little bit smoother. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, you could say that. In a way, it was definitely smoother. In a way, I was like, dang, who out here telling my business?
Right. So, how would you say that your response, Madrese, to him going into crisis, especially seeing it for the first time, what did that feel like for you?
It was just sad that this is something that he has to go through, and this is something that he's been going through, knowing that I would never experience those pains and knowing that it wasn't something he did to himself. So above everything else, it was just, I thought it was unfair, and just I was sad for what he was going through.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people who, see what we go through from a spouse to even our parents. At times, even our parents feel a little guilty for giving it to us. But that's usually what it is, and no one really knows how to help at times. So, excuse me. Have either of you been married before? You married each other?
No.
So, Roy, in your past relationships, how did they respond to you having sickle cell?
I never really had any bad responses. In the serious relationships that I was in, it was just a matter of letting them know, that I have sickle cell, explaining what sickle cell is if they didn't already know. Unfortunately, having to remind them that it's not contagious or something that they can catch. And I mean, I honestly never had a negative experience with dating someone who didn't have sickle cell, and this being their first person that they've ever dated with sickle cell. So they were always pretty supportive.
That's great. We all know all too well about how important the support system is, because that keeps us going, especially when we just have our days where we want to throw in the towel and just screw it all,
Absolutely.
So that support system is extremely important. So let's get into some nitty gritty. Let's see. Wait a minute. So what's it like just on a regular day, one of your low pain days, Roy, and everything is smooth? Give us an example of what your normal day is like.
Um,
I want to compare it from a day when you're incapacitated because of sickle cell.
okay. Well, now that we're in COVID and this pandemic, I would say a normal day for me is just waking up, uh, getting my son ready for the day because Monday, Wednesday, Friday he's here with me. So I would get him up, get him something to eat and something to watch on TV while I'm at work. And Madrese is typically already gone around 6:30 or 6:45 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at work. I check on him during my breaks and lunches, of course, and make sure that I'm taking care of him. And around 2 o'clock, he goes down for his nap, 2 to 2:45, somewhere around there. I'll put him down for his nap. Um, and then it's just finishing my day. I work 7 a.m., 7:30 to 4.
Okay.
So yeah, once I get off of work, she's coming home not too long after, and we're kind of hanging out, cook, watch a movie or our favorite TV show at the time, and that's about it. It's especially right now is very laid back.
When he's not in pain, the day moves like through smoothly, so
Yeah.
where there's like no issues and it's our typical routine.
Yeah.
Good, good. So what are those painful days like for you guys?
The painful days are, of course, aren't pretty good, but
Like how stressful is that on you, Madrese? To kind of see him like that and then kind of step up and be able to kind of do everything at that moment. How stressful is it for you, and like what's going through your head in those times?
It's very stressful for me just because typically I worry a lot and I get stressed out over like very simple things, which is where we kind of balance because he really doesn't get as stressed as I do in certain situations. So when he is in like really, when he's in a lot of pain, we just first have to decide, is it like, okay, we're going to the hospital type of pain or something to where you're going to take your medicine, your pain medicine and try to manage it. And then that's going to determine like what I have to do. If I need to schedule a babysitter, well, not a babysitter because it's always our parents.
yeah.
So to see if we have to take our son or if he's just going to be here. But it really just depends on the level. Like when it's extremely bad and he does have to go to the hospital, the most stressful part is just coordinating where to take our son.
I see. I see. And I can imagine that. How easy was it, or what was the decision like to work from home, Roy, now that you're in a pandemic, and Madrese to go out? Because sometimes that exposure, you have to go to work, but that exposure can be scary. So how did you guys come to that conclusion, that agreement?
They made me go back. So they
Yeah.
came to that for us.
It wasn't really much of an option. But as you said, it was pretty scary. Knowing that we're high risk and that she has to go to work, this it wasn't really an option. And we went through the process of trying to get her to, or filling out the paperwork for her to stay home. But apparently for her job, she would have to be the one that's a high risk in order for her to work from home. It wouldn't, her spouse being high risk wasn't really a factor in that.
Even if you had something like at my old job, we had FMLA, and even with my mom's job, they had FMLA. So, well, I wouldn't know how that would work with a pandemic anyway, because usually the FMLA is, moments of sickness and not
Yeah.
something to this extreme. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm also not surprised at, some of these companies that enforce that.
Yeah.
So, Roy, how do you balance your work schedule and being super active with your kid, with your son?
It was very hard at the beginning. I think we've just come to an understanding. He's 2, but I really feel like we've just come to an understanding where he knows that, I'm not available all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So even like today, I was actually on a call and he was, telling me, Daddy, I have to potty, I have to potty. And he was saying it over and over again. I hear him, but there wasn't anything that I could do at the time. And he held it. He's a trooper. He held it. And, I was able to set some time to the side, take care of him, and then go back to work. And yeah, he's just, as weird as it is to say for a 2-year-old, he's really understanding.
That's funny. I'm glad he understands that though. That's funny, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let me also ask, Roy, how does sickle cell play a factor in, I know men want to be that provider and that protector. How have you met your own expectations becoming a husband and father, even managing your health with sickle cell disease?
That's a great question.
I'm coming to you next.
I don't know if I can say I've met my own expectations. We've been married 4.5 years, and in the time that we've been married, we've definitely had some challenges. But I can definitely say that as far as my effort, I feel like I definitely meet my expectations as far as my effort goes. And unfortunately, with sickle cell, that's all you can control is your effort sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are just completely out of our control.
Yeah. I get it. Trust me. What about you, Madrese? I know you probably had expectations for, or maybe not, for a husband and father. Do you think that for the most part, Roy has hit those expectations?
I do. Yes, we're really big on setting goals, like financial goals, lifestyle goals, and we're on track. Where I feel like we're just a little bit ahead of the time frame that I had before we even got married. So I have no issues. We've been able to accomplish a lot. We've been able to recoup after some of our setbacks quickly. So yes, I feel like we're doing great, especially when you take into factor our age. Despite any illness for our age where we are, I'm very happy and I feel like we're blessed. So when you do add in the fact that he is dealing with a chronic illness, it just, yeah, I have no complaints.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. That is just absolutely awesome. Um, so Roy, was there a point, Madrese, you said you knew he had sickle cell. At what point did the topic of trait testing come up, or did that even come up?
Immediately.
Yeah, like the first date.
Nice.
I was
Yeah. I think on the first date we were having a conversation. Not that I was trying to get her pregnant right away or anything like that, but just being honest and letting her know, like, whoever I do end up with, whoever I do marry or get pregnant or have a child by or whatever, is going to have to, be 100% sickle cell free, like no trait, nothing, because that was just a requirement for me. That was just something I couldn't deal with.
I get it. I'm the same way. So I get it. That's good that you guys had that talk immediately. Some people kind of wait. Well, you guys started off as friends and went from there. So, different people kind of gauge when they want to have that conversation. So
yeah, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially for them, because as as we already said, she already knew I had it. So it wasn't a weird conversation to have at any time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. So Roy, what do you think was the best thing about, do you think Madrese is more sympathetic in a way? And Madrese, you said you worry a lot, so I'm sure that kind of pulled at your heartstrings to see, he's dealing with so much. So do you think that Madrese is more empathetic because of the sickle cell, more or less, or just no impact?
Yeah, I definitely think when I'm in pain, she's very empathetic. She's always, trying to take care of me or make sure that I have everything that I need. Yeah.
Okay. So what type of things you need from her when you're in your moment?
Uh, I get when I'm when I'm sick and I'm on pain pills, or if we're in the hospital and I'm on like a drip or PCA pump or whatever, I'll typically get pretty emotional. So
Yes,
she's
yes, yes.
always right up under me, kind of like cuddling or whatever, and
It's two
she knows.
extremes. He either is going to be like very rude and always wants to argue, like everything's an argument, or he's just like, "Where are you going? Come right here." I'm no, like he either wants me to be right next to him, or he's arguing with me.
Oh gosh. We do get really emotional when we're in that moment. And I know for me, even before it gets to the hospital, when the pain just gets bad at home, I'm irritable. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to talk, I don't want people to talk to me. But like you said, at the same time, I need to be held. I need to be cuddled. So I understand.
Favorite ones.
I completely understand. So, Madrese, do you feel that he meets your needs, and what are your needs in the marriage that Roy accommodates?
So I'm big on stability, and I like to know that like the routine that we have is going to stay constant. So he's really good with that. Like even with the like having his illness, I feel like we're still in a routine.
Good.
So and I like the traditional like relationship standards where it's like you have your male roles and you have your female roles. I'm more so very traditional, so he is like that as well. So even when he is in pain, he is still able to take the lead, which works for me, because again, I get stressed out like really easily, and it's great that even when he is not feeling his best, he is still able to play his position in our marriage and in our family. So that works for me.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. Y'all are just warming my heart tonight. So let's see. Um, are there ever moments, Madrese, where Roy is closed off? Like we mentioned earlier, well, for him, he wants to either argue or cuddle up, but sometimes I can also just cut people off and just be in my bubble. Are there any moments where he completely just shuts down and cuts you off?
When he's in pain and there's something that we have to do, especially if it benefits me or if it's something that I want to do, he won't tell me about the pain that he's in. He'll just suffer through. So I feel like that's a way of like closing off, because I don't mind canceling plans or rescheduling, but he's not gonna go for that. So that's a way that he closes off, is he doesn't let me know he is in pain. Just like when for my 30th birthday, we were taking a 6-day cruise. The like whole time, well, at least like the first half of it, he was in pain, feeling like he had pneumonia. And before we even left, I was like, let's just go to the hospital and make sure everything's okay. But he was like, well, what if they admit me? And I was just like, we can just reschedule the cruise. But he just wasn't having it. So he does that often. But I mean, ultimately it's because like he cares for me and my feelings. But I dislike that because I feel like he should be taking care of his health.
Yeah.
That should be the biggest priority.
That was going to be my next question, because I know we tend to push ourselves. And if sometimes if we got plans like a cruise, I kind of don't blame you, Roy. I would have thugged it out too. I would have thugged it out too, because I do that when we're traveling, before COVID and everything, and we're traveling somewhere. It doesn't matter. I know what I need to do while we're on this cruise or while we're in wherever until it's time to get back. Even if I have to come back and go straight to the hospital, we're going to thug it out. That's probably not good. But
Yeah, exactly. It's not good, but my thing, and I always tell her this, is growing up, I felt like there were so many things that I missed out on being in the hospital. And there were so many plans that had to be changed. And just going through that over and over again. One, I don't want her to have to go through that, and I definitely don't want my son to have to deal with that, at my expense or at his expense. Having a good time. So I feel like if it's something that I feel like I can push myself through, then I will. and I'll just make sure I have my pain medicine, and I'll go through, we know how to take care of ourselves. We know the things that I guess kind of help the crisis as much as it can anyway. So I do all those things, and the hospital is always the last resort.
Yeah, I get it. That makes sense. I completely get it though. We want to just keep going and not be a damper sometimes on the fun.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, don't want to be a burden.
yeah. So Madrese, when Roy is pushing himself and you see it, do you try to talk him out of it? Baby, need to calm down and just rest a little bit. Is he still going? And like, how do you balance that when you see the stress coming on and kind of see the crisis coming on?
There's nothing I can do. He's stubborn. If he's not, if he doesn't want to do it, or if he feels like he's going to push himself through it, then I can talk to him for 10 hours straight and it's not going to change anything. So I've learned to just let him push himself through, and I can try to manage my stress so that doesn't add to his stress. Good. Because he's going to do it regardless.
Good. I'm so glad you said that. That was a helpful tip. Let's see.
I think she also knows that I know my limits.
That's good.
Yeah.
So when at those times where, well, whether you're in the hospital or not, Madrese, how are you with advocating for him? Do you like let him handle all the talk with the medical staff, and like how active are you in his advocacy?
Not that active, because I'm not really quite there with really knowing what to say and how to say it, because I don't want us to fall into a like being treated as a stereotype, because I understand with sickle cell patients, they already don't really believe the severity of your pain. And when I get upset, I can get really loud and I talk really fast. So I don't want them to take my actions out on him and deny him something. So really, I just try to be there to support him, but he usually advocates for himself. And I'm just there as like a witness, except for one time where they did mess up his prescription, which led to a huge situation. I actually was assisting him in advocating because I felt like that was just inappropriate, but normally he takes the lead on that.
Roy, do you think it would help, or would this even be considered like if you had some type of handbook? Okay, this, because we tend to know some of the medical jargon, we can talk the lingo with the staff. Do you think it would help if like there was some type of handbook in case of an emergency to help Madrese be able to communicate with the staff?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, especially, I mean, in the case of an emergency, I feel like that would definitely be needed, because if I can't advocate for myself, then she would just have to trust that the doctors are going to do the right thing. Right. And if there was something like that, that would help her kind of feel more comfortable advocating for me, or anybody, for instance, that is in the hospital with a sickler, then I think that would be great.
I think so too. Someone else suggested that, and I think that's a good idea, not just for a spouse, but your family, anybody that is there when your emergency person that's there when things hit the fan and you got to move quick. So Madrese, are there any resources from your point of view that would help you better help Roy in those moments, or just in general? Do you think there are any resources that you're lacking?
What you were talking about before, like the book or the pamphlet with like the certain terms, that will for sure help. Because when they ask questions about like previous, like what they did to treat him the last time, I can answer those. But if it's like an emergency situation where I feel like they're denying him medicine or help, then I would need like something that has steps, like even legally, like what to do, like who do I call, and who like the social worker or the advocate, like those things like that would definitely help.
I agree with you. And I do know, you can always reach out to the patient advocates at the hospital, but just having that book on hand to assist you in those moments, because sometimes when you're stressed out, you're not thinking logically sometimes, and it's like, oh my God, what do I do? So that care plan, as I call it, would be super super duper helpful.
Yes, agreed.
So Roy, do you think that sickle cell has made more, excuse me, more, less, or no impact on your vulnerability to Madrese?
Mm. That's a good question. What do you think?
I think more. I think you share a lot more than people who aren't dealing with anything. Because even like when we were talking about like our first date, you talked for it was like 3, 4 hours, and I don't think people who
Yeah,
aren't
this is
dealing with
true.
things will be so open about like your life and your past and such. I think you're way more vulnerable.
Mm.
That's good. That's awesome to know that and to hear that. Um, on the last show we mentioned how sometimes, even though we go through what we go through, sickle cells made us stronger, and sickle cells impacts a lot of things what we do, good and bad. So I think it's really good that it kind of opened up your vulnerability more because of everything that you go through. That's just absolutely awesome. Um, so Madrese, how do you see his interactions with you and with him and your son? How do you see that?
Oh, I love it. Be like our son, and we call him Papa. He is like a mama's boy, just because he was breastfed for so long. And Roy really tries to get his attention, and Papa will be like, "No, I'm not trying to have this. Like, I need to go to my mom." And I like that he doesn't get down about it. Like he doesn't get sad. Like when I'm not around, then Papa loves to be underneath him and interacts, and even like he prefers me when he's happy, but when he is in a situation where he is hurt,
Distressed.
distressed, like frightened or in anxiety, he's like daddy. So I love that he knows that he's the one that is like gonna be able to to take care of him and to help him out in stressful situations. He just comes to me for like snacks and touch my arm, but if it's like a serious issue, he's definitely gonna go to Roy.
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. Have you guys like talked to him about sickle cell? I know he's only 2, but I know, does he like notice when daddy is not feeling well? Like, how does he respond to that?
Uh, I don't know if I show it enough
Mm-hmm.
for him
Okay.
to really notice it.
To notice it. Okay.
Um, Typically, I just lay down, and there's sometimes where he'll just come and lay down next to
Mm-hmm.
me, but other times I don't even think he notices. He's just moving around, and he's a busybody, especially in
Mm-hmm.
this house. He runs around.
I'm
So
sure he's 2. So
Yes.
yeah.
But whenever we ask him to pray for Roy and to touch like whatever part is aching, he'll do it with no issue. And
Yes.
like he'll pray over him and he'll get the
that is
blessed
so
oil and you'll be
sweet.
like, come here.
Yeah.
So that part is really cool. He understands that, he needs prayer right now and he'll do that with no issue.
That is so incredibly sweet. That is so incredibly sweet. Have you thought about like that conversation, how that conversation would go? I know it's early in the game, but
Yeah.
having that trait conversation, he has the trait, right?
He does.
Yeah, he
So,
does.
have you guys thought about that conversation at this point?
Yeah.
Even before he was born, we want to make sure that we have it at the conversation at a point where he's going to understand it, and then we're always going to have the conversation because I mean at some point we would want the trait to disappear from our bloodline, so
Yeah.
we want to make sure that he understands, okay, like you have this trait, whoever you end up with, make sure they don't have the trait, the significance of it. Like you can be affected with the trait and not the disease, so you need to make sure that you're hydrated. So we want to constantly have the talk with him to where he doesn't, end up in a situation to where he's dealing with a child that has sickle cell, because
Absolutely.
we didn't prepare him enough.
Right. And that's awesome. A lot of our parents weren't really prepared and wasn't informed with the knowledge about sickle cell trait, sickle cell disease, or anything, and they learned as they had to raise us. So, and honestly, at 37, I'm still learning about the disease. I feel like it's changing all the time, and we're getting older. I like to say we kind of age faster, so we have to adapt to this new age just because that's life, and how sickle cell is impacting us now at that age. So we're always adjusting. So that's great. I think I answered all of my questions. I'm gonna go to my Facebook to see if we got any questions on there. Is there anything extra you guys want to talk about or add?
Um,
No.
Not that I can think of, no.
Okay. So when you, Roy, were working outside of the hospital, outside of the house pre-COVID, how were you able to manage that with your kid? And was he in daycare? Like, how did that
Yeah, he was in daycare. Um, the daycare is actually kind of like on the way to her job. So she was majority of the time getting him up, getting him ready for school or daycare and taking him. So um, before we moved, we were kind of sharing that responsibility more. But now that we've moved and the daycare is actually closer to her job, she just kind of handles that for us.
Okay.
And I just kind of, if they call and they need somebody to pick them up or something like that, then I would handle that because she's a teacher. So she can't leave her classroom the same way I can, take some time away from my job.
I got you. I see. So let me ask Roy. Let me see how I want to word it. I know men, and I may have asked this, men want to be that protector and provider. How did sickle cell impact that going into a marriage and becoming a father?
It was definitely nerve wracking because of the way I was raised and just knowing her expectations for a husband, having my own expectations for being a husband. I was, of course, worried because I've lost jobs before because of sickle cell. I've been unemployed. Like I've just been through a lot, especially, the FMLA and only getting a percentage of my income at times, like things like that. It was definitely something where I was like, I used to ask her all the time, like, are you sure you want to marry me? Like, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
But I guess it's just having faith and just feeling like, we could make it through and we could figure it out, whatever it was.
That's so sweet. So
Yeah.
in those stressful moments, because I know marriages, relationships, period, comes with ups and downs, and knowing that stress is a trigger, how do you what type of things do you guys do when those stressful moments come in between you to kind of prevent Roy you from getting sick and Madrese from your anxiety just going off the chain? Like, what do you do in those moments?
Especially if we're like having a disagreement or something like that. I think we just kind of take some time to walk away, kind of cool down, and maybe revisit the conversation later on instead of hashing it out right then and there and it getting even more escalated and turning into something else and a crisis or her being worried about anything. We just kind of take some time to reword it and figure it out.
And then letting him take the lead, because he's going to understand, like,
in certain issues.
Well, in certain issues, especially if it's a situation to where the stress could lead you to a crisis, then when he feels like he is ready, like pain wise and body wise and like mentally, then we can discuss it, according to him, because it's going to affect me, but not as much as it's going to affect him. So sometimes with conversations, when he's ready to have them, then that's when we can go into it further, because when he does close shut down, it's shutting down with telling me how much pain he's dealing with. So I don't want to assume he's not dealing with a lot of pain and try to talk about it then, because I may, be completely wrong. So some things he does have to take the lead with how to deal with stressful situations.
Right. That's really good. What do you do for self-care, Roy, when, things are stressful and you just need a minute? What type of activities do you do?
Sometimes I'll just go on a drive. I just drive around for a moment, kind of clear my head, listen to my music,
Video
games.
Go to your mother's house?
Sometimes, not too often.
Or talk to your sister?
Yeah, I talk to my sister a lot, but I don't talk to her about the stuff we go through in our relationship. Sometimes I just go in the backyard, especially this summer. I just go in the backyard and water the grass and be sitting there watering the grass, thinking about life decisions or something.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I have a garden in my backyard, so some days I just sit out there and zone out. Like you said, when it's nice and warm outside, just sit out there and zone out. I still live with my mom, so that relationship is of course it's not a marriage, but we have some interesting moments. I just need to get away. So, let's see. I think that was it, to be honest. I want to make sure I hit everything. Balancing your health and parenthood with your career. What's the career field that you're in, Roy?
Insurance, auto insurance.
Okay. Is that something that you went to school for, or something that you just came upon and you like it?
Yeah, I used to work in mortgage, and around the time that we were dating, actually, she was telling me I had actually just lost my job. FMLA ran out, and they were like, "No, we have to let you go." I was in the hospital. She was up there visiting me, and like I said, we were dating at the time, and she mentioned becoming an adjuster, and on medication. It went through one ear and out the other, honestly. And I could continue to struggle for probably another year before she brought it back to me. And that's when I took it seriously. I got my license, and it actually turned out to be a really good field for me.
Okay. And are you able to manage that well with your health? Like, are they pretty understanding and forgiving? Are you kind of flexible on things?
Yeah, so actually the first company that I worked for, it was right after I got my adjuster's license, and I was actually working as like a contractor. And the lady that I was working for had a cousin who had sickle cell, and I had no idea. So it just ended up being a blessing in disguise, really. So that we had just gotten married, and I got sick, and I didn't want to have to tell her, but I went ahead and told her anyway. And I ended up just telling her, honestly, like, I have sickle cell. This is something that I have to deal with. And she was like, you take as much time as you need, don't worry about anything. And it wasn't until like months later where she told me that she had a cousin that had sickle cell. And we were actually, I was off my medication because we were trying to have our child. And she was really understanding and really cooperative just the entire time. And it really just, she was a lifesaver during that time. So
That's awesome. I love it when you're working with people who can be understanding on both ends, whether you have the disease or someone you love and you're caring for, in a sense, has the disease. It really helps when people are understanding, even if they don't know, even if they don't know about sickle cell per se, just having that understanding and empathy and they understand that, okay, you're still an adult, you still have responsibilities, but you deal with this other stuff that's going on. So to make it work. So
yeah, and it actually, I think it worked out in both of our benefit, because she had somebody that she could ask questions to in regards to sickle cell. I guess the questions that she didn't really feel comfortable asking her cousin. And I think I kind of shed some light on sickle cell and some of the things that we go through.
good.
Because I think her cousin just had kind of like a misconception around him and how he dealt with it. And I was able to show her like, no, like this is real life. Like you get to see me, you know, a married man trying to take care of my family, a hard worker, and you get to see like the things that I'm really going through. And it just kind of helped to open her eyes to some of the things that, you know, we do go through as sicklers, and that her cousin maybe wasn't making up things, or, you know, so situations like that.
And I see those type of conversations as twofold, because you help her understand sickle cell better, and she was able to help you, you know, try to just be a regular person and take care of your family. And even on your end, Madrese, you know, I don't know how much you shared with your job about sickle cell, but even to a certain extent, they have to understand, hey, my husband is dealing with this. Maybe I can't come this day. Maybe I have to leave early, or whatever it is. But I would think to some degree they have to at least know, hey, this is what's going on. Would that be accurate or no?
Well, before I started teaching, I was in the mortgage industry, the same, but I was in sales, and sales really, they don't want to hear about anything outside of did you hit your numbers. So I had more supportive coworkers than I did actually upper management, to where I always, like, regardless if I was in the hospital with Roy and I left the hospital to go to work, I never told upper management, because they did not care. But my coworkers knew, because I had a close relationship with them, and they were able to help me like through it more so than management. Now that I'm a teacher, my schedule is flexible. The hospital actually is 3 minutes away from my school. So the times when I've been teaching and he has been in the hospital, it hasn't been hard for me to stay up there, knowing that I'm just right up the street. I can come on my planning period, and I haven't told anybody what he's dealing with, because I've been able to manage it a lot better, especially with all of the breaks and the hospital being so close to my school.
That's awesome. I really enjoyed this conversation with you guys. I learned a lot about marriage and relationships, about you guys, because, you know, me and Roy have been Facebook friends, I don't know how long, but we've never actually talked, and let alone talk about relationships and sickle cell. I've seen comments, of course, and one of my friends, when I told them you guys were coming on, she maybe saw some other post that you had written, Roy, and suggested you guys after we had already collabed. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. They're perfect.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. You guys are such a beautiful couple. I love your story. That was just amazing to me. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. Huh?
This was fun. I enjoyed this.
Awesome. So we're going to have a part 3. We're going to invite you back once we have some more conversations to talk about. So hold tight. Let's go to our sponsors really quick. We're going to go to the sponsors, and I want to thank the Apex Museum and Mr. Moore. It's still shut down right now. However, when it's up and going again, please check it out. It is historic right here in downtown Atlanta. It's Black History Museum. It's absolutely phenomenal. So we want to thank Mr. Moore with the Apex Museum. We also want to thank Kids Stop Daycare and Learning Center and Tanya Lovett. She is making it do what it do at her daycare and learning center with the kids. They're still in school, virtual learning, and everything is set up. And we want to thank Black Professional Network for all they've done for us. So I also want to take the time to share this transition workshop this Thursday evening, December 17th at 6 p.m. Make sure you go to our Instagram or Facebook pages to register for that. It is for young adults with sickle cell, ages 19 to 25, and we're going to be talking about college life, work life, and entrepreneurship with sickle cell. There you go. So make sure to check out that link. And I also want to take the time just take a moment of silence. We lost 2 warriors this weekend, actually. One was Miss Linda Jordan, and one was Miss Jewel Darbonnet. Jewel was a fierce advocate in the sickle cell community. She was 33 years old. Miss Linda was in her 60s. So I just want to take the last few minutes to honor them, say a word of prayer for them, their families, and yeah. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you also access statusnetwork.net or download the Status Network app to also watch live. And that's it. I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Deadly combo. Black Prophet, Charlie Black, AR the Prophet.
AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. Hold up, I don't think they heard me. I said AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. Hey yo, turn me up a little. We good. AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush great. This one's for the record, but going down history in the making. AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a